This program is brought to you by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world.
The search for the best continues. Tagi sa Nagaling Part 2 is now accepting audition entries. If you are 21 to 59 years old and have what it takes to be the next Tagi sa Nagaling Grand Winner as a solo performer, duet, trio, band, or grouped act, submit your audition entries now. Just follow these guidelines. To submit audition entries for the singing category, contact Nikki at 0977-651-9504. This is your chance to be Tagi sa Nangaling's grand winner and win 2 million pesos. For more details and updates, visit and like the Tagi sa Nangaling Facebook page. What are you waiting for? Join now!
Hello, Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Welcome to Eagle News International. Now to the news. Former Vice President Joe Biden and his newly chosen running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, launched their joint White House bid, with the newly minted vice presidential nominee saying Americans are crying out for leadership to overcome the triple crisis of a pandemic, racial injustice, and a ravaged economy. Take a look.
Over the past several weeks, I've had the incredible privilege of meeting and spending a good deal of time with a group of talented women leaders, all of whom are qualified to be president. With each one, the more I learned about them, the more I talked to them, the more impressed I was, even though I knew them before. My fellow Americans, now let me introduce to you, for the first time, your next Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Kamala, the floor is yours.
The president's mismanagement of the pandemic has plunged us into the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. And we're experiencing a moral reckoning with racism and systemic injustice that has brought a new coalition of conscience to the streets of our country, demanding change. America is crying out for leadership. This virus has impacted almost every country, but there's a reason it has hit America worse than any other advanced nation. It's because of Trump's failure to take it seriously from the start.
A formidable 55-year-old U.S. Senator from California and a daughter of immigrants, Harris has already made history as the first woman of color tapped for a major party presidential ticket. The daughter of Indian and Jamaican immigrants to the United States sought to tap into the nationwide upheaval over police violence and racial disparities. Harris, who is 2 decades younger than Biden and President Trump, could appeal to younger voters and women, particularly those in the suburbs who have been fleeing the Republican president, according to polling. Trump, who last month acknowledged Harris would be a fine choice for Biden, attacked her following Tuesday's announcement as nasty and a radical leftist who would implement socialized medicine and confiscate Americans' guns. Now, President Trump, as I said, who last month acknowledged that Senator Harris would be a fine choice for former Vice President Joe Biden, attacked her following the announcement. Let's listen in.
I didn't watch. I saw just a moment of him speaking, a moment of her speaking, and it was enough. Look, he made a choice. He picked her. I watched her. I watched her poll numbers go boom, 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 down to almost nothing. And she left angry. She left mad. There was nobody more insulting to Biden than she was. She said horrible things about him, including accusations made about him by a woman where she, I guess, believed the woman. And now all of a sudden she's running to be vice president, saying how wonderful he is. She said horrible things about him, horrible things. And she mocked him, openly mocked him. That's why I thought that was a very risky pick, because I'm sure that'll be played back. Not necessarily by me, but others. It'll be played back. Generally speaking, you don't want to pick somebody that went down. She went down, but she went down in a very terrible way, and she said horrible things about Biden.
In other news, a fast-moving brush fire north of Los Angeles prompted mandatory evacuation orders for some 500 homes on Wednesday as firefighters battled the flames that had burned 10,000 acres by early evening, according to authorities. The lake fire erupted at around 3:30 p.m. local time near Lake Hughes, about a 90-minute drive from Los Angeles. Rapidly spreading flames had scorched some 10,000 acres within a little more than 3 hours, according to the Los Angeles County Fire Department. Multiple agencies are battling a brush fire near the Lake Hughes area. This is in the Angeles National Forest, according to the department in a tweet. The smoke plume from the flames could be seen miles away from the site of the fire. More than 300 firefighters, backed by helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft, were deployed to fight the blaze. Wildfires have become more frequent and bigger in California in recent years, in part driven by climate change. The deadliest fire in the state's history, the Camp Fire, took place in Northern California in November 2018 and killed 86 people. Okay, first let's go to Spain, where the government will extend a furlough scheme to year's end. Joining us live from Spain is Beverly Madrid. Hello, Beverly.
Hello, Alma.
Hi, Beverly.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Yeah. Spain again grapples with Europe's worst virus infection rate. Just 7 weeks after bringing its first coronavirus wave under control, experts say Spain is once again in a critical situation with the worst infection rate in Western Europe. The country reported an average of 4,923 new daily cases of the respiratory disease during the last 7 days, a higher amount than that of Britain, France, Germany, and Italy combined, according to a tally compiled by AFP based on official figures. Spain counts 95 COVID-19 cases per 100,000 people compared to 24 in France, 17 in Germany, 13 in Britain, and just 8 in Italy, the first country outside of China to be hit hard by the pandemic. The spike has led a growing list of countries to impose restrictions on travel to Spain, which has nearly 323,000 confirmed cases of the disease, the highest number in Western Europe and 11th highest in the world. There are currently more than 500 outbreak clusters in Spain, according to the Health Ministry. The ministry's emergencies coordinator, Fernando Simon, acknowledged Monday that there are cases of community transmission in some places that are not perfectly controlled, but he said they had gradually subsided in recent days. Spain in mid-March imposed one of the strictest lockdowns in Europe to fight the spread of the virus, with people allowed outside only to buy food, seek medical care, briefly walk their dog, or go to work if they could not do so remotely. When the lockdown measures were completely lifted on June 21st, the country reported just 238 new infections and it had just 8 cases per 100,000 people. But infections have surged since the first week of July, in part because the government rushed to open the economy, surely thinking about tourism. A pillar of the Spanish economy, said Juan Caila, the head of Barcelona's tuberculosis investigation unit, which now focuses on COVID-19. Several outbreak clusters have been reported among seasonal farm workers who often live in cramped conditions since the summer harvest season began, helping fuel the rise in cases. And the start of warm weather has led people to relax a bit in country where physical contact and get-togethers with friends and family are common. These help create a perfect storm, Massive said. He said the best way to curb infections is with more testing, public education campaigns, and hiring more people to carry out contact tracing, and there have been flaws in all 3 areas. The situation has led other European nations to be increasingly wary of Spain, with Germany on Tuesday classifying Madrid and Basque Country as at risk, advising tourists to avoid them. Spain's powerful regional governments, which are responsible for healthcare, have taken drastic measures to curb outbreaks, such as shutting down nightclubs and making use of face masks in public mandatory despite the heat. Several regions have also launched public awareness campaigns with hard-hitting images to encourage youth to respect social distancing measures. The federal government defends its record, arguing that more cases are being detected because more tests are being carried out. Around 7.5 million so far, with 407,700 last week alone. It points out that more than half of new infections are amongst asymptomatic patients who show no symptoms but can still pass on the virus. The hospitals are far from being overwhelmed, and that the rate of death from the virus has dropped significantly. Spain recorded 950 daily COVID-19 deaths on April 2, along with its first coronavirus wave peaked, compared to a total of 253 deaths since lockdown measures ended on June 21st, for a total of 28,576 fatalities. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Bevs. How was the weather there? Are you still not experiencing a heat wave?
Yes, it's still hot here.
It's still hot.
Alma.
Do you know the temperature?
Yes. The temperature right now, probably it's 38, maybe 30 to 38 degrees Celsius right now.
Very hot. Okay, so you take care of yourself and stay safe. Thank you for your updates there
Same
in
to
Spain.
you. Same to you. Thank you, Alma. Reporting from Barcelona, Spain, I'm Beverly Madrid. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Bebs. Aftershocks are expected from the magnitude 5.4 quake that hit Batanes on Thursday, according to PHIVOX. Now, the tectonic quake struck 77 kilometers west of Sabtang at 6:32 a.m. local time. It had a depth of 20 kilometers. Intensity 4 was felt in Sabtang, while intensity 2 was felt in Basco, Ivana, Mahatao, and Uyuga. Intensity 2 was also reported in Itbayat. Another magnitude 3.1 tectonic quake struck Batanes at 8:50 a.m. local time, with the epicenter at 51 kilometers southwest of Sabtang. The depth focus was 15 kilometers. There were no reported intensities, and PHIVOX is not expecting aftershocks from the 3.1 magnitude quake. PHIVOX said damage is not expected from both earthquakes. And a shallow 6.0 magnitude earthquake struck southeast of the Tanzanian financial center of Dar es Salaam late on Wednesday, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. Now, the offshore quake struck at a depth of 15.5 kilometers just after 8 p.m. local time. The epicenter was 66 kilometers southeast of Vikindu. Now, Vikindu is just outside Dar es Salaam. There were no immediate reports of damage, but the tremor was felt as far away as in Nairobi in neighboring Kenya. And deep quakes tend to cause less shaking than shallower ones, which have far more potential for destruction. Quakes are rare in East Africa. In a related news, Google added an earthquake alert system in California, saying it is working on letting Android-powered smartphones double as tremor detectors. Android phones will receive warnings triggered by a Shake Alert earthquake early warning system, implemented on the West Coast by the USGS and partners. Shake Alert uses signals from hundreds of seismometers across the state to trigger warning messages that an earthquake has begun and shaking is imminent, according to the system's website. Smartphones are typically equipped with tiny accelerometers that sense movement and can catch shaking caused by earthquakes, according to the authors. Principal software engineer Mark Stoigaitis said in a blog post that this means your Android phone can be a mini seismometer, joining millions of other Android phones out there to form the world's largest earthquake detection network. Android phones that detect what might be earthquake activity can automatically send a signal to a data center, where computers quickly interpret motion and location data in aggregate to determine whether a quake is happening, according to Google. Earthquake alerts are starting in California because the state has an extensive seismometer network in place, and the alerts are expected to spread to other locations during the coming year as the phone-based detection network is established. And Indonesia's Mount Sinabung erupted again with a string of blasts that sent plumes of ash 2 kilometers into the sky. It triggered a flight warning and fears of lava flows. Take a look. The activity marked at least the 8th time that the rumbling volcano on Sumatra Island has erupted in less than a week, although there were no injuries or major damage reported. Authorities issued a warning to planes flying near the volcano, which last saw a deadly eruption in 2016. There is potential for more eruptions, and airlines are to be on alert, according to the National Disaster Mitigation Agency spokesman Raditya Jati. The crater's alert status remained at the second highest level. Jati said authorities had marked a 5-kilometer no-go zone around Sinabung and warned of possible lava flows. Locals are advised to wear face masks if they leave their homes to guard against the health effects of volcanic ash on health. Now, on Monday, Sinabung belched a tower of smoke and ash some 5 kilometers, coating local communities in a thick layer of debris after eruptions at the weekend. And stargazers have been able to observe heightened activity in the night sky, with many more shooting stars visible as the Earth passes through the Perseids. The Perseids meteor shower peaks every year in mid-August. The Perseids occur as the Earth runs into pieces of cosmic debris left behind by the comet Swift-Tuttle. The cloud of debris is about 27 kilometers wide, and at the peak of the display, between 160 and 200 meters streak through the Earth's atmosphere every hour as the pieces of debris, traveling at some 2.14 LHK kilometer per hour, burn up a little less than 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Where do the Perseids meteor showers come from? The comet Swift-Tuttle, which was discovered in 1862 by Lewis Swift and Horace Tuttle, takes 133 years to complete one rotation around the sun. The last time it reached its closest approach to the sun was in 1992 and will do so again in 2125. According to NASA, these meteor showers are best viewed from areas in the northern hemisphere in pre-dawn hours. However, at times, it may be possible to view the meteor showers as early as 10 p.m. But this year, NASA said the showers are coinciding With the last quarter of the moon phase, which it reached on August 11, the last quarter moon is half lit by sunshine and its own shadow, and it rises during midnight and sets at noon, due to which the view of the showers may be restricted as a result of the moon's brightness, reducing the visible meteors from about 60 per hour to 15 to 20 per hour. Eagle News will be right back.
The successful development of TPLEX, or Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway in 2009, a 4-lane toll road that extends from Tarlac City to Rosario, La Union, with an additional approved extension of 56 kilometers all the way to San Juan, La Union. This is expected to reduce travel time to Baguio and other provinces in northern Luzon. Realizing the vision of creating a better world for Filipinos fueled the team's focus.
Hi, I'm Vina Morales. Abangan ang part 2 ng Tagisan ng Galing dito lang sa Net 25.
New Zealand rushed to track the source of a sudden return of the coronavirus as the number of new cases in its biggest city rose to 17, and officials warned more infections were inevitable. National Health Chief Ashley Bloomfield said there were 13 new confirmed infections in Auckland, all linked to 4 family members, found on Tuesday, ending the country's record of 102 days without community transmission. Also, one came from the Philippines, and Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said there were likely to be more cases linked to the recent spike. Let's listen in.
Keep us. Let me be clear here, there is no blame or shame in having COVID-19. The virus is the problem, not people who have contracted it. They did not ask to catch it, and in the same way, you never asked to get a cold or flu in the winter. The virus is the problem, people are the solution. So, first, in managed isolation, we have one new case to report. This is a woman in her 30s who arrived in New Zealand from the Philippines on the 8th of August. She has been in managed isolation at the Distinction Hotel in Hamilton and tested positive at around day 3 of her stay. Moving now to the community. There are 13 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 to report in the community. They are all in Auckland, and they are all linked to the 4 people who we reported as confirmed cases yesterday and the day before. That means we now have a total of 14 new confirmed cases to report today, the 13 in the community associated with the other community cases already, and the one new one from managed isolation. And that brings our total number of active cases in New Zealand to 36.
It is being dealt with in an urgent but calm and methodical way. As we all learnt from our first experience with COVID, once you identify a cluster, it grows before it slows. We should expect that to be the case here. So here is what we ask you to do on an ongoing basis, and until, of course, the updates that we continue to share. If you live in Auckland, work from home if you can. If you go out, of course, it's for essential items, food, exercise, getting a test if you're unwell. Whenever you leave your home, we encourage you to wear a face covering, and it's great to see so many people are observing that advice. Going hard and early is still the best course of action, and we all have a part to play in that. I'll say again that as with our first outbreak, we do have an expectation that things will get worse before they get better, and we'll all remember that pattern as well, and modelling suggests that we will still see more positive cases. Again, though, at this stage, heartening to see them in one cluster, which I think is a take-home from this morning. But once again, we are reminded of how tricky this virus is and how easily it can spread. But we know that limiting people-to-people contact really helps stop the spread. We have a plan, we have acted quickly, and now we'll continue to roll out that plan.
India's COVID-19 death toll grew to the fourth largest globally as the disease's spread continues to accelerate. Now India is only behind the US, Brazil, and Mexico in the overall number of deaths. Its total number of confirmed cases rose to almost 2.4 million, the third largest in the world. India added 942 deaths from the novel coronavirus in the past 24 hours, topping the UK with a total of 47,033 fatalities. Earlier this week, the governor of Guam tested positive for COVID-19 and has since been slowly recovering. Our EBC Micronesia correspondent, Dejamira Kabilin, has the latest.
Last week, Guam Governor Liu Leon Guerrero came into contact with a close relative who had tested positive for COVID-19, prompting her and her husband to be tested, only to receive negative results at first. However, this past weekend, she began to exhibit the symptoms. She was tested again Monday afternoon and received a positive result later in the evening. Since then, she has been in home quarantine where she seized the opportunity to do this video.
Thank you for all your concerns, your support, your kindness, your well wishes, your thoughts, and your prayers. It is these words of encouragement that have given me the strength to battle this virus. I will tell you that the first couple of days were miserable, and it was pretty scary because I did not know what the course of this virus would be. Fortunately, the course has taken to its mildness, and I am now much better, and in fact have started teleworking as your governor. As you know, we have been seeing increased positive cases. This is something that we had expected because we have a very robust contact tracing team. We have a very robust investigative team. And what that does is when they identify a positive, they then identify close contacts of that positive and isolate them and take them out of exposure and follow through with them.
The governor continued to express her concerns about residents not doing their part in preventing the disease from spreading, forcing her administration to impose drastic measures.
We will look at what's going on in the next 2 weeks. What we're seeing also in positive cases is what I think has happened 2 weeks ago, and that is traces that go back to funerals and traces that go back to bars. I am very confident that we'll start seeing our numbers down. So I also would like to impress on our people, on you, that we are not out of the woods here. This disease continues to be in our community, and we will fight even harder to beat this disease. And how we do that is by really practicing our mitigation efforts. We will continue to quarantine and isolate, and also asking every one of you to protect your family, your loved ones, your friends, your relatives from this coronavirus by wearing your mask, social distancing, and washing your hands. Even among families, you should continue to wear your mask. I also would like to say thank you for all that you have done to make this community safe.
2 days after the governor reported her illness, her Lieutenant Governor Joshua Tenorio has also confirmed he was diagnosed with the coronavirus, initially showing mild symptoms. So far, the island territory has 449 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 5 people have lost their lives. Reporting from the island of Guam, this is Dejamira Kabilin for Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Australia's virus-hit Victoria State reported a major drop in new coronavirus case Thursday, but officials warned against complacency amid a worrying spread of the disease in regional areas outside Melbourne. Australia's Deputy Chief Medical Officer is also cautiously optimistic about a COVID-19 vaccine, as Australia's records reports more cases. Take a look.
Vaccines for COVID-19, and I am constantly astonished by the speed and the pace with which the global community is racing towards finding effective vaccines and treatments for COVID. But on this research effort, the Australian government has provided $330 million towards COVID-19 research, which is an extraordinary amount. There's just been a new Medical Research Future Fund, Immunological Studies grant opportunity. We are every day becoming more and more optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but optimistic nonetheless, of a COVID-19 vaccine being produced. And a number of Australian organisations, University of Queensland, Flinders University, are deeply involved in that.
Despite the precarious situation, Dr. Coatsworth said he was pleased with the progress Australian and international researchers and doctors were making in their scramble to find a vaccine. Just 278 new cases and 8 deaths were detected in Victoria on Thursday, a low not seen in weeks, while a smaller outbreak in neighbouring New South Wales produced 12 additional cases and 1 death. The surge in Melbourne, the capital of Victoria and Australia's second biggest city, had pushed daily infection rates over 700 in recent weeks, and dozens have died during a second wave that struck after Australia appeared to have the epidemic in check. Unemployment data, meanwhile, released on Thursday, showed the easing of restrictions across most of Australia saw tens of thousands of people return to work, with the official jobless rate climbing just 0.1% to 7.5%. However, the Australian Bureau of Statistics warned the impact of Melbourne's Stage 4 lockdown would not become clear until next month, when economic analysts expect a sharp dip in employment. And a vaccine targeting the RBD of S protein of SARS-CoV-2 induces a protective immunity. To tell us more about that, here's Percival Cunanan for the report.
Thank you, Alma. As the number of COVID-19 cases continues to increase in many parts of the world, experts are still into the search of finding an effective vaccine to fight the disease. One of these is the research conducted by Macau University of Science and Technology, MUST Faculty of Medicine, in collaboration with many well-known scientists from Macau, Hong Kong, and mainland China. According to Dr. Vili Chen, Executive Assistant to the Dean of Health Sciences at MUST and the Chairman of the Board of Sinofield Peace Award Foundation, that the vaccine is one of the most advanced COVID-19 vaccine research. He also explained that as the most critical step during the infection, SARS-CoV-2 uses its spike protein receptor binding domain, SRBD, to engage with the host cell receptor angiotensin-converting enzyme 2, or ACE2. He said that in this study, the research team showed that a recombinant vaccine comprising SRBD could induce a potent functional antibody response in the immunized mice, rabbits, and non-human primates as early as of 7 or 14 days after a single dose injection. He also mentioned that the sera from the immunized animals blocked RBD binding to ACE2 expressed on the cell surface and neutralized the infection by SARS-CoV-2 pseudovirus and live SARS-CoV-2 in vitro. He also emphasized that the vaccination also provided protection in non-human primates from SARS-CoV-2 challenge in vivo, and the elevated RBD-specific antibodies were also found in the sera from the patients with COVID-19. Meanwhile, Professor Kang Zhang from the Faculty of Medicine of the Macau University of Science and Technology explained that their finding highlights the importance of the RBD domain in the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine design and provides the rationale for the development of a protective vaccine through the induction of antibody against the RBD domain. He added that the objective of this study was to evaluate the potential of a candidate vaccine based on the RBD domain of SARS-CoV-2 and to evaluate the appropriate dosing regime and to test its effect in generating neutralizing activity against the said virus in the recipient animals, and to determine the immune pathways involved in the generation of the immune response so as to provide the groundwork for the design of an effective COVID-19 preventive vaccine. He also added that the vaccine had given a potent and complete protection of vaccinated animals, including monkeys. On the other hand, Professor Manson Falk, Dean of the Faculty of Medicine of the Macau University of Science and Technology, remarked that their research team has faced many challenges when designing their vaccine for the best effect, yet to keep other side effects the least and relieve other production concerns. He added that to move forward, the efficacy of the vaccine needs to be evaluated and validated in human clinical trials, which will be initiated shortly. He also considered that their concerted efforts made a breakthrough in COVID-19 vaccine and wishes that the mass vaccination can be conducted in the nearest future.
We are trying our very best with some good news right here. Last Friday, my colleagues here in the university, they have successfully published a very important document, an article on the research journal Nature. We successfully discovered the vaccine is called RBD, is part of the S protein of the very deadly virus, and which induces immunity to mice and also primates, so non-human primates, beg your pardon.
Reporting for New York Bureau, Percival Cunanan, we live in interesting times.
The Philippines will begin large-scale human testing of Russia's coronavirus vaccine in October, but President Duterte will not receive the inoculation until regulators guarantee its safety, according to his spokesman. Now, President Duterte had offered himself to try the very first jab, expressing huge trust in the vaccine despite growing skepticism about its effectiveness. But his spokesman, Secretary Harry Roque, said the president was scheduled to receive the vaccine no earlier than May 1, weeks after the Russian-funded Phase 3 clinical trial in the archipelago is due to end in March. The country's Food and Drug Administration is expected to approve the vaccine developed by the Gamaleya Research Institute and the Russian Defense Ministry in April. May 1 is when the PSG may allow him once all requisite tests have been finished, according to Secretary Roque. Moscow says it has developed the world's first vaccine offering sustainable immunity against the coronavirus and is in the final stage of tests involving 2,000 people. South Korea has opened a high-tech new front in the battle against coronavirus, fortifying bus shelters in the capital with temperature-checking doors and ultraviolet disinfection lamps. Take a look.
프리스부터 열화상 체크를 하고 이와 연동해서 정상 체온일 경우에만 출입문이 열리게 되어 있습니다. 그리고 내부에 의료기관에서 사용하는 수준의 UV 공기 살균기가 장착이 되어 있습니다. 때문에 내부 공기 중에 부유하는 세균이나 바이러스를 거의 99%에 가깝게 제거해서 코로나 등 감염병에 대한 대책이 준비되어 있다고 할 수 있습니다.
To enter, passengers must stand in front of an automated thermal imaging camera and the door will slide open.
바로 체크를 해서 확인을 시켜줘 본인이 느끼게끔 하고 들어오게 만들어줘서 뭐 체크하면서 내 상태를 확인하고 들어갔고 다른 사람도 같은 이렇게 뭐라 그래야 되지 코스를 이렇게 들어오니까 안심할 수 있다 그러나 그럴 수 있었던 거예요.
10 advanced facilities have been installed in the northeastern district of Seoul, offering protection from monsoon rains and summer heat as well as COVID-19. The cancel rent movement is gathering steam across the United States as Americans are hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic and unable to afford their rent. Activists want landlords to suspend rent obligations for those in the most dire straits, having lost their jobs in the economic chaos sparked by the virus crisis. Take a look.
Housing is a human right.
So in the tenants union, we're just having people coming to us constantly with their landlords or harassing them, telling them, oh, well, they're sending, I got a letter saying I would have to pay my rent back immediately as soon as the pandemic ended, even though the laws are saying 12 months. It's keeps showing that one of the biggest issues is that tenants don't understand like what the law is. We're not going to pay and there's going to be mass riots in the street because people are going to understand that the government doesn't give a shit about them if they can't even just cancel our rent. I mean, I don't think that it's going to be pretty at all for anyone if they make us do something that we just obviously can't do.
It's been 4 months.
With tens of millions of Americans out of work because of the pandemic, federal, state, and local authorities temporarily suspended evictions on tenants who cannot make rent. But many worry about what happens when those concessions run out. Over the past week, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has resumed evictions ordered before March when the lockdowns began, according to local media, and demonstrations and rent strikes by the Cancel Rent movement have been staged in various cities across the country since the start of the virus epidemic, which has so far left more than 164,000 Americans dead. And activists and relief groups in the United States are scrambling to head off a monumental wave of evictions nationwide as the coronavirus crisis leaves tens of millions at risk of homelessness. Take a look.
Everybody's scared, but we can win something else, like we can win extra time. It's like a play. We can win extra time for getting repayment, depending if you have repayment in your house, but if you don't get it, so we need to pay right away if you go to the court. If you don't got the money right now, I'm scared of that.
Is it really fair to force them to show up repeatedly outside of housing court to push for things that people who are paid to be in power should be able to determine? So I think people are willing and able to, who are willing and able to come out are showing up, but I think there is this deep frustration that those in power are not really listening to the voices of the masses. Like, we're talking about millions of people who can't pay rent, and searching deeply for a systemic solution. We're talking about homelessness like it's an abstract concept, and luckily, mercifully for so many of us, it is. But for people who are out here, I think they really feel it coming because you know, it's like this. We're all. I used to be a math teacher, and sometimes you're like, the math isn't adding up. No one has income, and yet you have to pay rent, and you don't want to be homeless during a pandemic. So I think people are going from being like, that's that person over there, to being like, that could be me.
The jobs catastrophe sparked by the global health emergency and the tepid rebound in the world's largest economy have left Americans struggling to pay rent and vulnerable to eviction. Hopes for relief in the form of a fresh package from Washington were dashed as partisan bickering scuppered the latest negotiations. Weekly census data shows that more than 30% of renters in the U.S. have no or slight confidence in their ability to pay rent next month. Three people died when a passenger train derailed in northeast Scotland on Wednesday, and police said in what First Minister Nicola Sturgeon described as an extremely serious incident. The crash close to the town of Stonehaven, around 25 kilometers south of Aberdeen, followed severe flooding across parts of the region overnight. Take a look.
One of the reasons that this accident is so shocking is, of course, that this type of accident on the railways is thankfully so rare. But our thoughts are very much with those who've lost their lives, their families, and of course those who've been injured in the derailment. I talked to First Minister Nicola Sturgeon about what has happened, and clearly the most important thing now is that the British Transport Police, who are in charge of the investigation, find out exactly what happened, and that we all work together with Network Rail, with everybody else who's responsible, to make sure that we get to the bottom of it and make sure nothing like this happens again. I do think it's probably a very good idea to look at the effect of substantial rainfall on all our vulnerable infrastructure everywhere. And I think that, as I understand, there was about a month's worth of rainfall in a very short period, which undoubtedly aggravated the problem there. But I think what we'll have to do is wait and see what the British Transport Police come up with, what exactly they identify as the cause of this derailment, and you know, working with Network Rail, with everybody, make sure nothing like this happens again.
Today, British Transport Police were called to the line in Stonehaven, Aberdeenshire at 9:43 a.m. this morning, following a report that a train travelling from Aberdeen to Glasgow Queen Street had derailed. Officers remain on scene this afternoon alongside the ambulance service, fire brigade and colleagues from Police Scotland. Very sadly, despite the best efforts of paramedics, we can confirm that 3 people have been pronounced dead at the scene. While formal identification is yet to take place, the driver of the train is very sadly believed to have died. 6 people have been taken to hospital to be treated for injuries, which thankfully are not believed to be serious. This is a tragic incident, and first and foremost our thoughts are with the families and friends of those who have very sadly died this morning.
Of most urgent concern is an extremely serious incident on the rail line west of Stonehaven, where a ScotRail passenger train derailed earlier this morning. The emergency services are currently on site and a major incident has been declared. I have just come off a call with Network Rail and the emergency services, and although details are still emerging,
In NBA action, Miles Turner and Justin Holiday scored 18 points apiece as the Indiana Pacers withstood a 45-point performance from Houston star James Harden in a 108-104 NBA victory over the Rockets. The Pacers snapped a 5-game losing streak against the Rockets, who announced before the game that star guard Russell Westbrook was nursing a quadriceps strain that could jeopardize his appearance in the playoffs. Harden did what he could to fill the void, contributing 11 of 14 Rockets points in a late-game surge that saw Houston cut a 104-90 deficit with 106-104 with 27 seconds remaining. Indiana held on, Holiday draining 2 free throws to close out the victory. Harden barely missed an impressive triple-double with 45 points, 17 rebounds and 9 assists. It was his 21st game in the pandemic-disrupted season with 40 or more points. The win for the short-handed Pacers, who were without all-star forward Domantas Sabonis, leading scorer TJ Warren, and starting point guard Malcolm Brogdon, means Indiana clinched a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they will face the Miami Heat when the first round of the playoffs begin in the NBA's bubble in Orlando, Florida. And an Aid to Humanity event in Winnipeg was attended recently by MP Kevin Lamoureux. He also helped out in distributing some bags to the needy. Kathleen Pangan reports from Winnipeg.
The Iglesia ni Cristo, our Church of Christ, led through the leadership of their Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, through the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, continues to fulfill their pledge to those who are in need through the Aid for Humanity outreach program during these times of the COVID-19 virus. The Church of Christ continues to help all people, whether those of their faith or not. It is indeed a heartwarming feeling and a pleasant sight to see that even in these trying times, the Church of Christ continues to provide a community service that benefits everyone.
My name is Kevin Lamoureux, a Member of Parliament for Winnipeg North, and it's such a pleasure to be with the brethren of the Church of Christ here in Winnipeg. You know, July 27 is a very important day. 2020 Well, we're celebrating 106 years since the church first came together. And over those many decades, we have seen so many positive, wonderful things take place. We can talk about how it's enhanced the faith and brought people together and enriched the families to the degree in which spiritually that they're better in tune with what their purpose of life is all about. We can talk about some of the many different good deeds over the years and people that have been so inspirational, the administration that has seen the church grow over the decades. Today, it's around the world. That includes here in Winnipeg North. And I've really been blessed over the last 30 years as a parliamentarian, where I've gotten to know many members of the Brethren of the Church of Christ, and they have done so much to making the community a better place. Today, celebrating 106, is a special day, as I said, and you look behind me and you see all these caring hands that came together to put together a package to support residents in Winnipeg's North End. And you know, it doesn't really matter where it is in the world. There are people that are in need, whether it's a senior on a fixed income or individual families that find it challenging. So here in Winnipeg, the Church of Christ, through my brother Sidney, has really identified a community that could use that helping hand, and it's such a pleasure to be able to participate in aid to humanity, supporting people here in the North End of Winnipeg. So I just want to first and foremost congratulate whether it's Brother Manolo from the Philippines and the administration, to the administrators here in Winnipeg, and of course the brethren, the people that attend the church, say congratulations, 106 years, and to give a special thank you for recognizing the importance of contributing, giving back to the communities. This is just one of many events over the years that has taken place. So just from the community to say thank you, and I look forward to supporting and helping and possibly doing some of the distribution itself.
Reporting for Eagle News from Manitoba, Canada, I am Kathleen May Pangan. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Kathleen. Before we close, we leave you with a word of hope. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. See you again tomorrow evening. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
This program was brought to you by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world.